All right, friends, it's been quite a week in Washington. I don't know any other way to describe it, as we've seen the political process play out in real time since Tuesday. And the legacy media and the left, they want to portray this as a bad thing that's happening in front of us. And even worse, some are even equating this to the January 6th so-called insurrection.
And there's actually a through line here from the January 6, 2021 attack on our Capitol to this small band of, frankly, insurrectionists that are now attacking our democracy from the floor of the House, trying to disrupt our ability to govern, to serve our constituency, and to move the country forward. And it's really a sad day in America, once again, 2 years later.
Stunning to me to hear that. That was Democrat Representative Annie Kuster of New Hampshire earlier today on CBS News. And well, look, I would argue that political parties should not be ruled by fiat. And the fact that there is disagreement and hearing voices across both sides of any argument, that's exactly what a dynamic political party allows. I told you before the program would end, we had a very, very special guest. And joining me now to discuss this further as we close out our week here is FRC President Tony Perkins. Tony, it doesn't even seem right to say welcome back to Washington Watch, but we're honored to have you joining us.
Well, it's good to be with you. Thank you for filling in when I've got a guest host like you on Friday. It helps me to be able to do the other things I need to do here at the Family Research Council. So thanks so much for filling in. You know, that is an incredible statement that these elected representatives of the people who are exercising their constitutional duty to represent their people on the floor of the House are insurrectionists. Look, Jody, you know this very well, but I think our listeners and viewers need to understand this because the political pundits and the media's talking heads that are out there, quite frankly, have this wrong. This transference of power and the selection of leadership should not be predisposed by the powers that be or choreographed by them. We should allow for this dynamic process to take course. And why I'm encouraged, Jody, is because this prevents events like January the 6th. When you suppress people and you don't allow them to engage fully in the process, have a voice, and come to a consensus, which it now looks like we're moving closer to a consensus with the Republicans in the House, that's where you can move forward. You can't move forward with false unity that's forced upon people because A, they're ignored, they're suppressed, or their votes aren't counted. And so I think this is a very, very healthy process.
Tony, I think that is an excellent, excellent point. And it's highly offensive to me to sit back and watch this type of statement, to refer to those who are doing the job of representatives, having debate, working through issues, in this case, trying to fix what's broken in Washington, and for them to be referred to as insurrectionist. But the point you just brought up is something that bears repeating, and for us to digest personally, all of us who are tuned in right now, that insurrections literally occur because of suppression. And what these representatives are doing is trying to liberate people who have been suppressed in Congress for so many years. Is that an accurate portrayal?
It is. I mean, when you are elected and when we help members of Congress or candidates get elected to Congress, people get involved in their campaigns and they want to see them go to Washington and represent them. That's their voice in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. But as you know, and as we've talked about this week on the program, for the last 4 years, the last 5 years almost, members of Congress have not had a voice. It's been confined to the leadership. You cannot amend bills on the floor. You get no time to review these bills. The committee process has been completely violated, oftentimes circumvented completely. And so they're trying to fix it. And again, This is how our system is supposed to work. We've grown so accustomed to things just being forced upon us that when we actually see it functioning as it should, it is alarming. Well, quite frankly, again, not to be repetitive, but I'm encouraged by this, that you've got men and women of conviction who say, well, no, this is a moment in time in which we can fix this. And Jody, this is what I also see happening, is that people will regain a confidence in this process when we get to the end of this, because they'll see the outcome puts us in a better place than when we were where we were when we started.
Yeah, I watch some of my colleagues in Congress right now arguing about this process themselves, and I look at many of them with the full understanding that they have never seen Congress operate the way it was intended to operate, where members are allowed to go to the floor and offer an amendment to a bill. And people need to be aware, it's been over 6 years since members of Congress have been allowed to offer an amendment to the bill on the floor of the House of Representatives. And many who are serving in Congress right now have never known any other system than that which currently exists, where deals are made in back rooms and then bills just dropped on the floor and you're expected to vote on it right away. And so I think you're spot on, where we're going to see members who experience for the first time the way the process is supposed to operate in Washington. And I believe that'll not only be impactful to them, but it will ultimately have an enormous impact across our entire country. Agreed?
Right. And as we've talked about this week, this is not about personality or about individuals. This is about the process. And I have to commend those members, most of them in the Freedom Caucus, that have pushed, and they have succeeded in large part based upon my conversations today with members and what we've seen. They have changed the rules, or at least we've gotten commitments to change these rules in a very significant way, opening up the process and once again making this the people's house. So again, Jody, this has been a great process. It's encouraging. It's just the beginning, but I do think this is a point in which we can restore confidence in our government, because it will work giving people a voice in their government.
All right, Tony, as we wrap it up here, let me give you two quick questions, and I want to do it in two questions because they're somewhat similar. First of all, what do you say to people who are just being inundated with the media right now, talking about how terrible this is? What would you say to them? And then secondly, how should Christians in particular respond right now?
Well, to the first one, Jody, is I used to be a defender of the media. I was a television reporter many, many years ago before I got into politics. And I used to defend the media, but the media has become an opposition party in many ways to conservative ideas. And so don't listen to them. And as Christians, we need to be in the Word of God, and we need to see things from an eternal perspective. And that gives us hope and encouragement.
30 seconds. What do Christians need to do? How do they respond?
Prayer, in the Word, and standing firm in the truth. Pray, vote, and stand would be a good adage to follow.
Outstanding. Thank you, Tony.